A very, very good evening, one and all. What a depressing day it's been. My goodness, but it's made better. It's made bearable by your company. So thank you very much and welcome to everybody to the Reasoned live stream. As ever, your company makes or breaks us. You know, it helps us. We are an independent channel that I set up during lockdown from a bedroom flat in London. Now, do please comment along. I love to engage with you, our audience, especially in the comment section. There is a chat function within this stream. And I think you'll find that actually with the news being as relentless as it is, the betrayal thick and fast, I think actually we need each other more than ever before, to be perfectly frank, to make us all feel like we're sane, like actually we're not alone in this. And trust me, you are not alone in this. You absolutely aren't. The number of people I've had say to me saying, I wish I could say what you say. I wish that we had more people like you. I wish actually that reform will form the next government, that His Majesty the King will have to welcome to Buckingham Palace to form an administration. My God, do we need that? My God, is that clear after today? Is it not off? Not off. But before we get into the meat of what it is I want to talk to you all about, my friends, and meat actually is the appropriate word in this scenario, given that I want to talk about our family farms. But I want to start with the absolute omnishambles that was the budget fallout today, leakier than a sieve. If you've been watching the news today, you might be asking the same question that the Chancellor herself was asking in this naughty little photo that I put together. There she is, Rachel Reeves. So they actually put out this photograph, by the way, my friends, not with the piece of paper saying that I did that, but they put out this image, and there she is with a chessboard, but it has A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the numbers 1 to 10 on the side. And I thought, oh, that'll be appropriate for Rachel Reeves when she's thinking about how she can best pop the British economy on a knife's edge even closer to the precipice of complete and utter carnage. And she did just that. So that chessboard clearly helped her out. But I added in, what the hell am I doing? I didn't quite use the word hell. And there she is, grimacing towards the camera. Now, we're all wondering the same thing here, because today it was confirmed what we all suspected, that this Labour government has trapped us in an economic doom loop, and they haven't got a clue to get us out. Mike Atkinson has written in, he says, what happens to the 90k of donations that you took from followers to fight the Brexit fine, 20k fine he's talking about? Well, I won the court case and I had to pay the costs for the lawyers that I hired. It's not rocket science. Was that meant to be a lefty own? How embarrassing. How embarrassing. We'll ban that horrible little thick troll. There you are. Goodbye. Now, strap in, my friends, because the data is utterly damning on Reevesy. We keep being told that things can only get better. Well, I don't know what planet you're living on if you believe that old guff. Have a listen to this, my friends. So this is Ed Conway. And Ed is at Sly News, but sometimes they say the right things, they say the good things, and they happen to do so in this particular case, in this example here. And I was actually quite impressed by their analysis. And they put it, by the way, they put this analysis right in front of a Treasury Minister. So this is a Labour Party MP that works under Rachel Reeves.
This is just showing you how much more or less taxing a different parliament is. It's an IFS chart they just put together. This parliament is going to be increased taxation across this country more than any single parliament going back to the 1970s. I mean, it's kind of staggering, like, you know, given the difference between what the manifesto said and that. I don't think the manifesto might have pointed towards about that. It would no way have pointed towards that.
So look at the skyscraper, that red skyscraper that's billowing up there. That actually goes against everything that they promised to do. And the Institute for Fiscal Studies confirmed today that if actually an election were held tomorrow, the tax rises in this parliament would represent the highest on record ever of all time. Taxes are at a historic high of 38% of GDP. And debt to that GDP meaning gross domestic product, debt to GDP is almost at 100%. That means the money we're taking in isn't enough to actually cut down the borrowing. We're spending as much as we're actually making. Now, you know as well as I do, my friends, you don't have to be Milton Friedman or whoever else, an economist, Milton Keynes or whatever else it might be. Milton Keynes? That's not an economist, that's a place. Maynard Keynes, I meant. My God, what a long day. But if you're not an economist, you know as well as I do that the money that you're taking in, if you're spending that all out, guess what? You're left with out. You know that, don't you? They raised taxes by £70 billion since taking office. And what are you getting for it? Are you getting better services? Well, no, because actually your local councils, and I know a thing or two about this, are being asked to do more and more with less and less. Are you getting cheaper energy? Remember £300 off your bills? Well, no, you're poorer, you're colder. I actually think I go downstairs and I look at the thermostat and I think about turning it up. It's been a bit cold recently. And then I decide actually pop a jumper on. You know, the fact that we're having to make these decisions in a country like Britain, in an economy that was once robust and world leading, well, it's an absolute farce. It's a joke. This is what they've done to us with net zero and actually the complete and utter drag of this country into the depths of economic leftism. And that's exactly where we're at right now. Have a listen to this particular video in which actually all of the promises that were made during the election, remind yourself of some of these because they were thick and fast. Remember, we were told that the Labour Party were the adults in the room, that actually this was a sign of the leaders of old being back in government, that actually we would get fine economic stewardship, that there wouldn't be tax rises, there wouldn't need to be because we'd be back on a trajectory to growth.
Let me be absolutely clear, we will not raise tax for working people.
Labour will not be increasing taxes. I am very clear about that.
No tax rises,
We don't want to increase taxes.
no income tax, no national
Lie.
insurance, no VAT.
I will not raise taxes.
We're not going to
Lie.
increase tax. I don't believe it's fair to raise taxes on working people.
I would
Lie.
like taxes on working people to be lower. I want
Lie.
to cut taxes.
Labour will not be raising taxes.
There'll be no additional taxes on households under Labour government.
It's a commitment not to increase taxes.
Lie.
We've been very, very clear. We will not increase
No plans to
raise tax.
Taxes.
We have no plans to raise taxes on working people. We've said it a million times.
We're going to have to put up taxes.
Well, that's not true. This budget raises taxes by £40 billion.
The biggest tax increases seen since 1993.
There's no need to come back with another budget like this. We never need to do that again.
I'm really clear. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
It's now on us.
I will maintain all income tax and equivalent national insurance thresholds at their current level.
But we don't need to come back for more. We don't need to increase taxes.
I am asking everyone to make a contribution. Labour will not be putting up taxes on working people. I know that maintaining these thresholds is a decision that will affect working people.
They
It's now
lied.
on us.
They lied. It's now on us. It's now on us. Well, it is now on you. And I tell you what, if I give you the context of Durham County Council, the national insurance increase on employers meant that we had to actually find an additional £4 million for the wages of those under the employed by the council, or at least employed by the council through a third party, like in the care sector, for example. So you have to find an additional £4 million. It was actually an 8 million increase, but the government funded 4 million of it and told us we had to find the rest. Now, what that means is that you get fewer millions going into your services. That means that the care crisis that's going on in local authorities throughout the country can't actually receive as much money or as much support because of the fact we've got to find the money for her tax increases. And now, with they're putting up the living wage again, the national minimum wage. That's going up again. It's going to mean that younger people who need a step on the economic ladder aren't actually going to be employed by businesses because businesses simply can't afford to do it. You know, I've been struck by the number of people saying to me, I don't know how I'm going to go on like this. I have no idea how my business can survive, especially farms. We'll get onto that in just a second. But this Labour government announcing as well a milkshake tax. They'll basically tax absolutely anything, naughty or nice. And the fact of the matter is that milkshakes, it might sound daft to you, but I have farms not far away from where I am in County Durham that are selling milkshakes as another way to actually sell their milk products. Now, if you have to have a tax added upon that milkshake, it suddenly becomes a lot more expensive than it would be in, say, a supermarket, which can undercut a farm's the amount that a farm has to charge in order to make a profit. All of these things, what I'm saying to you is all of these things have consequences. Their actions absolutely have consequences. And these consequences are not good. And if you don't believe me on this, well, actually, look at what the Resolution Foundation have actually said on this. Now, the Resolution Foundation, all of 5 minutes ago, was led by a man called Torsten Bell. And yes, he is as posh as he sounds. And Torsten Bell used to work for this, or run this foundation, and it's very, very close to Labour. He's now a minister in the Treasury, and this organisation, the people, let's not forget, that effectively wrote the Labour manifesto, say that this budget represents the second worst rise in living standards since the 1950s. Don't forget, in the 1950s, we were still living with rationing to a certain degree. We were still living with the ramifications of half of Europe being enslaved, engulfed in war. Disposable incomes are flatlining, unemployment is rising, and the guy that helped design Starmerism, if there is such a thing, being an AI chatbot, probably has more humanism than Starmerism, but it's making you poorer. It's absolute balderdash. And they say, overall, while the forecast was better than expected for the Chancellor, that ain't saying much, is it? It had real bad news for households. The outlook for living standards has worsened, with real disposable incomes rising by a paltry 0.5 over a year over the Parliament. That's minuscule. And that, of course, can go up and down. You know, this is the margin of error we're talking about. The second worst since records began in the 1950s. And while many will focus on rising taxes, an even greater concern for living standards is the projected rise in unemployment. When people don't have jobs, they can't sustain themselves, they can't support themselves, they can't sustain their families. We know that people that live in families, households in which their parents work, have better life outcomes. It's as simple as that. So if they're picking your pocket, where is the money going? Well, the OBR, that's the Office for Budget Responsibility, who actually leaked the Chancellor's budget before she'd given it. I mean, honestly, can these people get anything right? But the OBR predict that by 2030, we'll be spending £406 billion a year on welfare. That's 11%, so 10% of the entire share, the slice of the pie of our GDP. We're taxing work to fund worklessness. £406 billion, and that's a change since March. £16 billion higher since March. March of this year. We're not talking 10 years ago, we're talking March of this year. We're taxing work to fund worklessness. Since March alone, 16 billion quid higher. They didn't plan for it, apparently. It just happened. They promised that they would reform welfare. They haven't done anything of the sort. They acquiesced to their backbenchers and handed out money like it's sweets. Sadiq Khan was welcoming the fact that free school breakfasts, millions of them have been handed out at this point, and he said they were free. Well, my friends, nothing is free. It's all taxpayer funded, and the amount of tax that we're spending is now at record highs. They cannot squeeze us any further than they have. If we were to be represented in this lemon here, my friends, can you see this lemon? Well, we would be squeezed a little like this. You know, we're turning into puree. That's exactly what's happening here, my friends. We've got 1.26 million foreign nationals claiming universal credit. That costs the taxpayer £12 billion per year. We're spending £15 billion on asylum hotels over this decade. So we in the Reform Party have said, why didn't Rachel cut that off? Instead of going for us, instead of going for the farmers, instead of going for the pensioners, instead of going for those working damn hard to keep their businesses afloat, that actually employ people, small to medium-sized enterprise in this country are the backbone of the British economy. Without them, most people don't have jobs. We at Reform said cut off the scam of sending foreigners so much in the way of money. Cut off foreign nationals from benefits. Save that money. Labour ignored us. Instead, in this budget, they managed to find this £16 billion more for welfare. A lot of that, too much of that, going to foreign nationals. We have said that even EU nationals shouldn't be receiving welfare in this country. We need to prioritise our own, and it's our own who are picking up the tab. If you come to this country as a foreigner, you should not be able to access the welfare state. If you want that, go back to your home country. They are the ones that ought to take care of you in a time in which you find yourself on the down and out. It cannot be the British taxpayer that picks up the tab like an international welfare lounge. That's exactly what we've become. We found 1.8 billion in this budget, 1.8 billion for digital ID cards, taking money from the Home Office budget to track you instead of fixing the border and using it as an excuse that we can't police our borders, therefore we need to police you. This is a failure, a systemic failure across the piece by this craven government that promised the earth and delivered hell. This is hell on earth. It's an assault on aspiration. It's an assault on our young people. It's an assault on our farmers, our family farms, the bedrock of our agricultural and rural communities. And frankly, in the round, all of it makes my blood absolutely simmer. It makes it boil. And while they bankrupt the nation from Westminster, they had the sheer audacity in Prime Minister's questions just before the worst budget in living memory. They had the audacity, the brass neck, to attack us for trying to balance the books here in County Durham as your Reform administration. We had Luke Akehurst, Labour's MP for North Durham, parachuted in from down in Oxford, no links to County Durham, but here he is serving as our Labour MP. He stood up in Parliament today, clutching his pearls like he's in a Victorian melodrama, and he had the gall to suggest that we are making life unbearable for the working class here in County Durham. Have a listen. I was absolutely, genuinely flabbergasted by what he had to say for himself, to be perfectly frank with you. And brutally, really brutally, this is a man who wouldn't know County Durham and its people and its priorities if actually one of us was to get up and, read the Rights Act to him in person. He does not have a clue about this. And he mentioned Stanley in particular, which, by the way, is where I'm from. And I'm very proud to be from Stanley, an ex-mining community. And we're a very proud people. But he's got us all wrong if he thinks that this is going to land with our people and our residents. Have a listen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister aware that because of the decision by Reform's Durham County Council to scrap support introduced by Labour in 2013, a typical working family in Stanley will be £170 worse off? How would the Prime Minister contrast the values of this Labour government with a Reform Party dividing our country and hitting working people in their pockets?
Well, I thank him for raising this. The more we see of Reform, the more we see their true colours. In this case, making people £170 worth off. But their true colours also in relation to the member for Clacton. His explanation, Mr. Speaker, in recent days, in relation to the stories about what he may have said in the past.
Oh, yeah, so Starmer just tried to go off on a tangent and criticise what Nigel Farage is alleged to have said as a child. Well, frankly, my dear, I think we've got actual problems to be dealing with in this country instead of poring over a cancellation of a child from the 1970s. Get a grip, you absolute supine invertebrate jellyfish. That's exactly what you are, you spineless cretin. A typical working family, he says, Luke Akehurst, that red-faced MP, he says Stanley will be £170 worse off. He says it's cruel. I live in Stanley. I don't just visit for photo opportunities. We're asking for a minimum contribution through council tax of 10% by those claiming benefits, claiming universal credit. That's as much as £3 a week. And why are we doing that, Luke? We're doing that because his government refuses to give the North a fair funding settlement. We have a low council tax base because we have more deprived communities. We need that money to empty the bins, to fix the roads. And actually, here's the hypocrisy that Luke forgot to tell the Prime Minister at Prime Minister's questions. I checked what his Labour colleagues are doing elsewhere in the country. And my friends, it makes us look like namby-pamby wet liberals. It really does. So here we are on your screen right now. This is from Bradford, a Labour council charging the poorest residents 30%. Those of them on universal credit, those receiving benefits. That's 3 times than what we're asking people to pay. It says here, how much council tax reduction may I get? It says, for all other working age, the maximum amount of council tax you may receive reduction is 70%. That means you'll have to pay at least 30% of your council tax bill. He says that reform in Durham, making people pay 10%, 3 times less than what they are charging in Bradford, makes us some kind of heartless cretins. Well, actually, in Nottingham, it's 20%. Another Labour council. In North Tyneside, another Labour council, that's just up the road, 15%. When Labour charged 30%, Luke Akehurst and Sir Keir Starmer are silent when we charge 10%, after the public that we consulted in County Durham told us they wanted at least 75%. In a consultation which we put forward, suddenly it's a national scandal. If anything, we are being namby-pambies. We're being more generous than the Labour Party because we're cleaning up the mess that they left. And we know that the Labour Party, through net zero, through their tax regime, are making life intolerable for people and communities. We're cleaning up the mess they've left us in. And I won't take lectures on poverty from a party that's hiking national insurance, putting people out of work and taxing young lads in my part of the patch out of their apprenticeships, out of their job opportunities, out of the prospects of a genuine working class revival in which men are proud to work with their hands. They're proud over what they do with their lives. Instead, we're making a generation completely dependent on welfare. Shame on you. I will take absolutely no lectures from the Labour Party. This Labour government have totally failed, totally betrayed the working class. Instead, we spend tens of billions of quid housing those with absolutely no right to be here, putting all of my residents in absolute fear of God that they're going to be harassed by foreign nationals who shouldn't ever be here. But we are powerless. We are utterly powerless, rendered it so by this government. They prioritise foreign nationals over our own kids, over our own pensioners, over our own farmers. It's a tale as old as time. I will take absolutely no lectures about delivering what my residents want me to do. And that's a reform prospectus. It isn't just the ratepayers, though, that they despise. It's the people who feed us. Thousands of farmers descended on Westminster today to actually protest against Rachel Reeves's family farm tax that was introduced last year. She wants to, well, she is, slapping a 20% inheritance tax on family farms worth over £1 million. That's not a lot of money for a family farm. In the southeast, and by the way, having a asset worth £1 million doesn't mean you've got that money in the bank. Most of these farms are loss-making enterprises. You're talking about farmers that at the end of the day end up making minimum wage. In the southeast, £1 million, that's a barn and a couple of pigs. You know, that's nout. They'll be forced to sell up, and that's what it's all about. It's a deliberate ploy to get farmers to sell up so they can pave over it with homes for migrants, with solar farms, with wind turbines. That's their plan. Nefarious, calculated, and quite frankly, evil. Have a listen to what farmers had to say. I'm going to play you some clips that I've been through and I've found incredibly actually rewarding. And I'm so proud of those that came out today. I wish I could have been with them.
Currently on top of my tractor in front of the horse guards, all the way to Big Ben. Tractors are parked up. They're still pouring in the back and they just keep on coming. Thousands of tractors here. Back British farmers.
Isn't that a beautiful sight? Look, they go down Whitehall, the seat of civil service power, of governmental power. They go all the way down, beaming down Whitehall. And farmers were told they can't drive their tractors in London. They were banned from doing it. That's how the state chose to respond to these peaceful, hard-working men and women who go out each morning at the crack of dawn to put the food that we feed and sustain our lives with. Did the police take a knee to them like they did the Black Lives Matter riots? Did they offer them tea and biscuits like they do for the Extinction Rebellion lot or the Just Stop Oil weirdos gluing their asses to the road? Did they, like they do for the Free Palestine people calling for jihad, calling for intifada, calling for the death of Jews? Did they allow it to go on each week, costing the taxpayer in policing and road closures? Did they allow the farmers to have their time to raise awareness for what's happening to them on this budget day? Did they allow this to happen? Did they? Answer me that. Did they allow this to happen? What do you think? What do you think, my friends? I'll tell you. I'll tell you clear as day what they did.
Who made the ruling?
Government and through
the government?
Through police, basically.
The government and police, okay. So yeah. So they made a ruling that we can't do in Whitehall. There's been things put in place that there can't be an assembly in Whitehall. You can assemble on foot and protest in Whitehall, but not with all the vehicles. Okay?
So let's be absolutely clear about what that exchange with a police officer and a farmer is all about. That's a farmer been arrested there. The Reform Party have made me incredibly proud today. They've sent a lawyer to a London police station to actually represent farmers, to represent them in their hour of need, because they've been arrested for lawful assembly, peaceful assembly upon Westminster. Starmer and his craven Labour Party never ever complained when the Palestine hard left were burning our flags, were destroying our flags, were clambering over our war memorials to commemorate our war dead, those brave boys who gave their lives so that we might be free. And the farmers are a step too far to them. It's the farmers that actually have gone too far to them. The police officer in that clip, if you could hear it, said there's a thing being put in place by the government that there can't be an assembly in Whitehall, not with all the vehicles. That's farmers banned, farmers arrested, farmers seeking imprisonment because of the fact that they assembled their vehicles. They used a Section 14 order. That's a police power designed to stop serious public disorder. I go back, my friends. Did this look like a scene of serious public disorder to you? Did it look like these farmers were shouting jihad? Did it look like these farmers were shouting intifada? Did it look like these farmers were burning our national flags, destroying our inheritance, clambering over our war memorials? Absolutely not. But it's a step too far to the Labour Party. Does that not tell you how far the purported party of the working class has stacked itself well and truly at the neck of the working class? They have us by the throat, the jackboot of the hard left. They do not represent the working class, the working man, the working farmer. Alan Miller from the Together campaign, who have been amazing during the farming protests, he was there and he saw what happened.
So we got a farmer being arrested, Section 14.
Another farmer.
This is the roundabout by Trafalgar Square. Our brave farmers who feed us, who feed all you guys in uniform and the whole country. We've had 2 years of mad protests. And now we have this farmer being arrested by Trafalgar Square, a public space, on Section 14 notice, on a basis that...
Another farmer. Can you believe this? Hang on. That's not playing. Here we are.
So we got a farmer being arrested, Section 14. This is the roundabout by Trafalgar Square. Our brave farmers who feed us, who feed all you guys in uniform and the whole country. We've had 2 years of mad protests. And now we have this farmer being arrested by Trafalgar Square, a public space, on Section 14 notice, on a basis that for weeks this has been planned. There's a budget today. Rachel Reeves is in there. They're about to attack family farms and our whole backbones. And these guys are arresting a farmer whose tractor's here. This is absolutely outrageous. You've got to let your MPs know. You've got to let the government know. This is what we're dealing with in 2025. The farmers are calm, they're professional, they're very polite. This is absolutely scandalous. It's unacceptable. That's why we're saying we stand with our farmers together. Look at this, going through all these personal things. I mean, if this doesn't make your blood boil, Britain,
it does.
If this doesn't make your blood, and how the Met Police suddenly have decided to get all strong after 2 years of some of the things we've been seeing going on here.
That's what I said.
When people talk about two-tier policing, I mean, this is the kind of thing they're talking about. Look at this. Doesn't it look like a criminal to you? It's absolutely unacceptable and scandalous. But farmers are all over London and the British public love our farmers, and we're going to stand together. We're going to make sure you hear from us, all the councillors. Many people are going to be punished in May, and MPs, and we'll see what's coming out on the budget today. But this is not stopping now. This has only just begun. You cannot treat our farmers like this in Britain. It's absolutely unacceptable.
I couldn't agree more. Well said, Alan Miller there from the Together campaign. And look, if you look at this farmer here, if you can see through the rays of sunshine coming in, but he's a young man. This is a young man with a family, a young farmer who just wants his inheritance of that family farm to be handed down, to be passed on, which it has been for generation after generation. This is a cruel assault on those who have an intrinsic link and connection to our agricultural, rural farmland. And I find it grotesque. It's deliberate. It is the kind of thing that we saw in the Soviet Union, in which the farmlands, the farmers are the first to be attacked in this way. And I find it sickening. Treating the people who feed us like criminals. Labour in their metropolitan cities and in Westminster think that food comes from a supermarket without actually thinking about what it has to go through in order to get to the damn Waitrose they're shopping. They're about to learn a very, very hard lesson. Have a listen to some of these farmers that were questioned on Whitehall, again, the seat of power in this country, and what they had to say about the assault on them, their communities, their families, their nation.
We'll fight them on the farm, we'll fight them in the towns, we'll get like the French and down with Starmer.
We don't want to cause trouble, but then, do we follow the French mentality and start spreading muck around this place?
If they don't listen, we
Would
could
you
become
support
more
that?
like the French farmers. It wouldn't be through choice, it'd be because we were pushed that way.
We're getting more and more people coming into the country, and we've got to feed them, but where's the food going to come from?
Yes, disrupt to make people listen, but I don't think that we would do anything illegal.
My dad's obviously the fourth generation and he won't be able to pass the farm down to me or my brother.
My advice to the government is to get some bread and cheese stocked up, because this is going to be a long winter.
In what way? What do you think?
In terms of they're going to go hungry.
Wow. Why?
Well, we can just close the gates.
What happens when there's no food? There's only 6 days food left in the country. So if we all went to war tomorrow, we'd have 6 days food. That's it.
If we just carry on saying, well, we're not going to give you any food, then they'll soon have to do something about it, because we're not going to back down.
Wow. There's only 6 days' food left in the whole country. And if the farmers went on a nationwide strike, we'd have 6 days of food. That's it. 6 days. We are an island nation, and this government is taxing the hand that quite literally feeds us into extinction. It is a sickening, communist-style assault on our country. And many of you are saying that actually, I think, I can see you in the comment section, many of you are saying that you would support the farmers taking this kind of action. Wow. I mean, this is a sign of the turn, is it not? This is a sign that the country has had enough, that actually we are at breaking point. We cannot possibly go on like this. We cannot maintain this. We are a nation that looks after foreigners more than our own farmers. It is a lunacy. It is an act of self-sabotage and national suicide. You cannot understand that. Princess May says, our elites are pathetic. Marie Antoinette, each and every one. Well, I think you might be right. But my friends, if you think that they're just coming for your wallet, these Labour people, well, or your farm, your plate, well, think again. Your milkshakes even. Think again. They're coming also for your liberty. Because whilst everyone is looking at what's going on with the budget and how it applies to their family finances, rightly so, I understand why. Leaked documents have revealed that David Lammy and his government are considering plans to scrap jury trials for intermediate offences, middle-of-the-road offences, to actually clear the judicial backlog that they've got within the so-called justice system. Two-tier Keir is at it again, my friends. Let's be absolutely clear. And I said at the start there when that leftist in the comment section mentioned that I'd been through court. I have been through court. I know what it's like to go through that process. It ain't nice. I fought for Brexit and I was put through court for it. I won. I cleared my name thanks to so many supporters. But I fear that what happened to Lucy Connolly, what happened to Peter Lynch, what happened to so many people that were jailed because they admitted guilt and they didn't have a jury trial. I don't think Lucy Connolly would have went to prison had she had a jury trial. She was a mother. She was a carer. She was someone that looked after her community, her husband, her family. She wouldn't have went to prison for sending a tweet if a jury got to decide. So let's be clear what this is in this BBC article with David Lammy looking like an absolute twerp, which is quite difficult because, for him, he quite often looks like the village idiot. I quite frankly think that many villagers are missing their idiot when he is out of them. But it says here, the Justice Secretary wants jury trials scrapped, except in the most serious of cases. Now, you might think, oh, well, if that's going to clear the backlog, if we can see more criminals imprisoned, hunky-dory, happy days. I ask you, my friends, to think about this very carefully and be very, very careful what you wish for. For over 800 years, ever since Henry II and the Magna Carta, the right to be judged by your peers has been sacrosanct, has been embedded within the British tradition, part of our national story, something that we exported around the world. You talk about the ECHR giving us our rights. No, it is the British Magna Carta and that inheritance that we have had from men and, well, primarily men, Englishmen, throughout the ages, that we now, for 8 centuries, have enjoyed. The single greatest protection that we have over an overmighty, overzealous state, over an overzealous, overmighty king, a monarch. This is longer than Parliament has existed. This is longer than the English language that we speak today. And my friends, the Labour Party are bringing it to an end. And I cannot tell you, that makes my blood run cold. They want to rip away our rights, freedoms and liberties and do it in the name of saving money. This isn't about saving money. So why does this matter? I repeat, it matters because you look at someone like Lucy Connolly, a mother jailed for 31 months for a tweet. She was sentenced by a judge, a single judge, and I am worried that the activist judiciary in this country would see similar such cases coming down the tracks and adopt a imprison first, ask questions later approach, where a jury would not be minded to do that. These are ordinary people, and you have a much better chance with a jury trial. I think a judge would follow government orders to crack down on people with the wrong set of opinions. It's exactly what happened in the case of Lucy Connolly, Peter Lynch and others. I fear that actually without juries being in the courtroom, we will see so many cases that we simply do not hear about, in which the completely clamping down, like you wouldn't believe, illiberal, anti-rights Labour government would be like a jackboot over the judicial system in this country. If Lucy Connolly had faced a jury of 12 ordinary run-of-the-mill people, she wouldn't have been in prison for as long as she was. I don't think she would have been in prison at all. A jury of normal Brits serves as a brake on state power. That's why we've had it so long. That's why it was adopted in the first place. I think of my hero, John Lilburn. John, freeborn John, was from Sunderland, and he was in court many times. He represented himself in the Star Chamber against Oliver Cromwell, and he fought for the right to a fair trial, the right to present evidence, the right to actually have representation and all these other things within a court of law. They stopped the government from locking up its political opponents. Back then, it was for being against Oliver Cromwell and his really quite incredibly pious government administration. He was the Lord Protector, so he was de facto monarch and ruler. And nowadays, it would protect ordinary people from being locked up by our government as its political opponents for hurty words. That's what's happening here. Hurty words into prison. And you only have to consider what's coming alongside of this. Join the dots here, my friends. Join the dots. They're rushing through compulsory digital ID cards. And as I said to you earlier, that's costing the taxpayer £1.8 billion in the budget. I imagine it will cost far more than that. But there's a cursory £1.8 billion in there so far. That's there to track your every move. And now they remove your right to a jury trial. Do you see where I'm going with this? They are empowering the same politicised judges who just handed out prison sentences for tweets that were longer than sentences for rape. I'm not joking. I cover this stuff. I read this stuff day in, day out. It is a deluge, a daily attrition against our morale as a people. This isn't modernisation, as David Lammy suggests. This is a deliberate dismantling of the safeguards that keep us free as a people. Many of us, many of you who speak your minds online could end up as political prisoners like Lucy was, convicted in secret trials with no jury to actually defend you and your interests. Do you think the press give a damn? Do you think the press will be covering this sort of thing? Absolutely not. We won't hear about these cases. People will simply be imprisoned for wrongthink. We've gone back in time. They want your money. They want your farm. They want your silence. And they're going to damn well make sure that they get it. That's exactly it, isn't it? This is about state control and power. This is about exacting as much as they possibly can over their political opponents. Those that they simply cannot abide, actually being entitled to oppose them with every fibre of their being, to oppose what they're doing to our country, to oppose the tens of billions being spent on those with absolutely no right to be in this country. That's what it's about. So when our farmers cry, listen. When our political prisoners cry, listen. When the state shows you that it is ramping up in a deeply sinister, authoritarian, calculated position, listen. Listen to what is being said, because it paints a narrative, and it is a deeply troubling narrative at that. I really, really believe that, my friends. Cornerstone says, none of this was in the Labour mandate. They need to be sacked. I agree. Princess May says, I've been on several juries. I was always impressed by the gravitas and common sense that jurors brought to their job. Exactly, and that's the key point here. It's that common sense element that they want to eradicate from the judicial process. Scott says, without accountability, they can do anything. Well, yeah. Lucy says, sorry, not for you, says Lucy didn't incite racial hatred. She didn't mention race, and for all I care, isn't directly inciting anything. This is a Sky News article. This hasn't come from me. Judges are woke, biased, and denying someone a jury trial is literally fascism. I agree, actually. I do. And I don't like that word being bandied about. God knows I've been called it more times than I've had hot dinners. But I think in this case, when you are denying people right to a fair trial, you deny them their rights as people, as human beings, as citizens of our nation. Paul says, yes, put any foot wrong and the state and only the state will conveniently trial you. Exactly, Paul. The theme song, Scott says, of Labour is Only Fools and Horses Were. You know, that's from the, Only Fools and Horses do. Young Soul says, always reminds me of the theme song of Only Fools and Horses when Starmer mentions income tax and VAT. No income tax, no VAT. I remember it. Well, I don't remember it, but I've seen it. And Johnny says, it may be the farmers that bring them down, Labour that is, someone has got to big up and actually bring the government down. Yeah. I think you're all agreeing with the farmers, like you're all absolutely incensed about the farmers. Judith says, Napoleon used to call us a nation of shopkeepers. Well, not after this. Absolutely, Judith. And that will mean mass unemployment in this country. I think actually we're heading to the 1970s. We've got taxes higher than they were in the 1970s, the tax burden being higher than they were in the 1970s, the tax take higher than it was in the 1970s. And those inflationary pressures, 3-day working week, all the left are calling for that as well. We're going back in time. That's what it is. We're going back in time. But at least in the 1970s, we had our freedom. Catherine says, a bartering for goods and services is going to become popular. I mean, how depressing is that as a prospect? How depressing is that? Thank you to everyone who's been commenting along and hitting that like button. The Brown says, the farmers should go on strike, pour the milk down the drain, leave produce in the ground and not deliver anything to anyone for a week or two. The country would be on its knees. I think we're reaching that point. I think we're reaching that point, my friends. We are as a country, at boiling point, and our farmers were the first victims of this Labour government, and they may well be the first to actually make it snap. It could happen. And as I said earlier, I'm so intensely proud that this reform government, I nearly said reform government. I bloody well wish. The Reform Party, my party, is defending in police stations our farmers from the overbearing state of Starmer. That's what it is, the overbearing state of Starmer. Dave says there was a saying from a video game. It says, what makes you a criminal is just getting caught. Well, we're all criminals in the state's eyes. Bill says, no money back, no guarantee. I'm going to have that in my head all night tonight. And Reagan from the US says, you are amazing. I'm from the United States, and I'm so angry about Labour's lies. I pray for the farmers and the citizens of your beautiful country. I have so many thoughts. I will simply pray for the United Kingdom. Reagan, I thank you so much for your very, very kind comment and your prayers for our nation. We are still a great nation. We are a great people, and that, quite frankly, I actually still believe that we can get through this. We've got one last chance. The next election represents our last hope as a country. It really does. Daisy said, if the farmers go on strike, do you think it's possible for people to go to the farmer themselves for food, cutting out the middleman? Well, Daisy, it'd be difficult, wouldn't it? Because obviously, a lot of these farms are in rural areas, so people would have to travel quite far for their food. It would bring the nation to a standstill. The the government would have to bring in the army. And what does that say? What does that say? Their priorities. It sickens me. And one thing I do have to end on, actually, was the Motability scheme. Now, I've spoken to you about the Motability scheme before. And what it is a scheme in which people with disabilities who need cars that are specially retrofitted with the tools that they need to actually, they might be amputees, whatever else, to actually power motor vehicles and be able to access the road alongside everybody else. I understand all of that. I'm not against help, support, provision for the genuinely disabled. But actually, I'm not sure that that's what's happening when it comes to the Motability scheme and much of the large scale of people being diagnosed with autism and ADHD so their parents can get them a taxi to school, so their parents can get them the support and help and longer times in exams and things like that. It's all happening. Believe me, it's all happening. It's bankrupting councils. We have to pay for taxis for those who 10 years ago would have just been told that they need a bit of extra help in classrooms. Well, actually now we've got to put on taxis getting them to and from school, and it is bankrupting our local authorities, not just Durham, but around the country. But the Motability scheme, if you receive personal independence payments, and by the way, some people get personal independence payments for all sorts of reasons that they wouldn't have over 10 years ago. Really quite some dodgy cases in which they're getting Mercedes-Benz, in which they're getting Audis, in which they're getting BMWs, these luxury German cars. I don't think actually you should expect the state to fund luxury. Should you? I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's just. But for saying all of this, it was dismissed as a far-right myth. But actually, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, admitted it in the House of Commons. She admitted it.
The Motability scheme was set up to protect the most vulnerable, not to subsidise the lease on a Mercedes-Benz. And so I am making reforms that will reduce generous taxpayer subsidies, and Motability have confirmed that they will remove luxury vehicles from their scheme, getting the scheme back to its original purpose of offering cost-effective leases to disabled people.
So there is the admission that it's gone from 3 months ago being a far-right conspiracy. Everything's far-right these days. You know, I can fart and it would be called a far-right fart. For now, being acknowledged by the Chancellor of the Exchequer for the complete racket that it is, billions and billions going to the company called Motability to give people on the taxpayer's dime access to luxury cars. The state is ballooning. Debt to GDP is at 100%. You cannot have whatever car you want. I can't afford to go out and get a luxury car. You can't afford to go out and get yourself a luxury car. We've got to start living within our means. Until we do that as a nation, I'm afraid that we will continue in a political dereliction of duty as a country and fail to recognise that actually what's going on in this country is, one, a complete betrayal of our ancestors, but two, an economic doom loop in which we say people are entitled to more and more, so we've got to spend more and more, and we've got to work less and less. Well, guess what? Then you become an economic basket case, and that's what we are. If you care about provision for the disabled, if you care about genuine kids in care being looked after, then you need to recognise that we cannot afford to go on as we are. The current trajectory is one to total lunacy, madness, and taxation on a scale in which the Venezuelan economy, basket case that it is, an economy that grew rich on oil and gas and then bankrupted itself through communism and a pursuit of the socialist utopia. We are on that trajectory. We need tough medicine to make the patient survive. And Britain is that patient on life support. And that's not hyperbole. I mean that, my friends. I really do mean that. And Ian says, nice to hear my local councillor talking complete sense. Well, Ian, thank you very much to you, my friend. I appreciate that very, very much indeed. And Bill says, correct, Darren, the cycle to work scheme inflated all bicycle prices, which excluded a lot of the public from buying good value bikes to richer people for getting top end bikes for less. Look, all of these schemes, they have knock-on consequences. It's a state-run racket. And Reagan says, Stuck Farmer looks like Winnie the Pooh. I can't unsee that. So much hate. Well, yes. I agree, my friends. I agree. Right, okay, I've done an hour. That's your lot. Thank you very much to your company. Thank you for joining Reasoned UK. As ever, my friends, please do smash that like button if you haven't already. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate all of the love, support and attention that you give me on this channel, but also Chloe Dobbs, who does an absolutely phenomenal job. And I'm glad that you're with me to connect the dots on everything that's going on in our country. You are not alone. That is my solemn message. I'll get there in the end. Message to you, my friends. You are not alone in this fight. Lots of love to you, your families, your communities. We can turn this around. We must get there. And I'm going to be here every step of the way. Yes, it gets tough sometimes. Yes, it feels lonely sometimes. Yes, the constant attrition against people like me is a hard burden sometimes. But we're doing this to be able to say, when we're dead and buried, we at least tried to save our country. I want to be able to shake my grandfather's hand when I'm up there, hopefully, when I'm up there, shake his hand, look him in the eye and say, I did you proud. I tried to be as much of a brilliant man, a hero to the country as you were. And I hope that actually we all aspire to that a little bit. We all aspire to doing our best. It's all we can do. So lots of love to each of you, and God bless and good night.